Hey guys, welcome back in. Today I'm going to be testing Cooler Master products against each other. I've got a Cooler Master LiquidMaker 92, which is a very unique liquid cooler all-in-one solution that has its own built-in radiator and fits like any other traditional cooling fan on top of the CPU. I've talked about this in detail in previous videos, so I'm not going to repeat that. And right now I've got the system up and running, and I am benchmarking it running Prime 95, which is a free open source program you can run on your machine as well. And I'm going to just torture test the CPU by pushing all the cores at 100% for 20 minutes. And then we're going to look at the temperatures. So what I'm going to do for right now is I'm going to put you over onto the output screen of the computer here. This just started. I see it's 337. So let's just round it off to all right, 357. We'll let it run for 20 minutes. And it's already been running for about a minute or so. And you can see where our temperatures are here on the package. You'll see our current value is down this aisle or row, the minimum value I'm not interested in, and the maximum value. And we want to keep an eye on the maximum temperature. And that's going to gain as it sits running at 100%. This is not a very realistic test. It's unlikely any customer would ever push a computer this hard. But that being said, what I want to do is let this run for the next 20 minutes, and we're going to check the temps. Particularly, we'll look at what our maximum temps hit. Then I'm going to pull this cooler off, replace it with a Hyper 212 EVO, which is a tower air cooler. And I want to kind of base the sound, which one's quieter, although this is pretty quiet. The 212 might be quieter. Now, this one will obviously look better through a case window. We don't have a case window, and it's not important to this customer. What is important is to have a reliable machine. All liquid coolers generally need a pump replacement after 4 or 5 years. By going with a tower air cooler, it may be quieter, it may actually cool better. It's possible. And the worst thing that can happen is he has to replace a fan, which is much less expensive, and it's much faster to swap a fan out to replace an entire cooler because of a pump. This customer would much prefer having the maintenance-free option, even though it would take 4 to 5 years before a typical pump will fail. Going with an air cooler could last the entire life of the computer without any repair necessary. And if a repair were necessary, you just change a fan. That's it. So let's go ahead and let this run. I'm going to go ahead and cut the audio for right now. I'll let you guys continue to chat in the chat room, and I'll come back in 17 minutes, and we'll see what our final numbers are. Swap to cooler, run the same test for another 20 minutes, see what the winner is. This is also twice the amount of money. This sells for around $60 currently on Amazon, and the Hyper 212 sells for, I think it was on sale for $25, but it's normally around $30 for the air cooler. If you're overclocking, a liquid cooler is going to give you better overclocks. So there's a price you pay for overclocking, and unfortunately we don't measure computer performance by frequency anymore. We haven't done that in many years. So getting higher clock frequencies does not translate necessarily to better PC performance when you've got chipsets, memory bandwidth issues, caches. The technology is improved such that a 3 gigahertz processor bought 10 years ago compared to a 3 gigahertz processor today do not run the same speed. The 3 gigahertz processor today will run far faster and far cooler than a 3 gigahertz processor from 10 years ago. And that's why overclocking is an outmoded, outdated, and obsolete mentality that doesn't really apply in any practical sense. Some people think that they can see the performance gain, but their money would be better spent on perhaps better graphics hardware or better chips, more modern chips, than trying to eke out more performance out of an old one by spending tons of money on special cooling solutions and then have to deal with the randomness of crashing as a result of going beyond the engineering design specifications of the chip, which highly educated individuals spent many hours researching and developing and testing to ensure reliability. So if you want to try and outsmart the engineers, you knock yourself out. But in the world of corporate IT, no one would ever pay you for that. So I'll be right back here in about, we've got 16 minutes, somewhere in there. And we'll see what our final temps are. So hang in there. You guys have a good time chatting. I'll be back momentarily. All right, so it's been 20 minutes since I went live here, and the maximum temp we're hitting is 93 degrees Celsius, which is not good at all, not good. Now, in all fairness, the LiquidMaker 92 came out over a year before the 8086 processor that I'm using, the 8086K processor. And our current temps, currently at 69 degrees Celsius, 70 degrees Celsius, they're really good. What concerns me are these max temps. The reason we're hitting these lower values now is probably because of thermal throttling. I think the Cooler Master Hyper 212 EVO is going to do a lot better than this. So let me shut this down. Watch when I stop the test. Watch how fast our temperatures will drop. Watch this line right here. This is going to drop pretty drastically, very, very quickly. And this does take longer to drop on a liquid cooler than on an air cooler because liquid takes longer to cool down. It's kind of a downside of liquid cooling. We'd already be at half this number with an air cooler. It would be almost instantaneous. So, well, liquid cooling, does help dissipate more heat. It also it keeps the heat in it longer. So yeah, those temperatures are starting to drop. Let's go ahead and just shut the system down so we can go ahead and replace the cooler. And we can repeat this test once again with the 212 EVO. And for me to do that, I can't see. Every time I put my overlay on there, it always gets in the way of something. So I'll just put myself up there for now. See, now I can't see the X to close that window. So I have to move this so I can close it. But at least now I can get to the start button, and we'll go ahead and shut that down. And then I'll go back to the main camera here. There we go. All right. And it's not loud, but it's not as quiet, I think, as the 212. I think the 212 is quieter and will run cooler and costs half the price. It really depends on the rig you've got on your case, because cases that don't give you any option for liquid cooling, this liquid cooler breaks all those rules. It says, yeah, if you can fit a cooler on your CPU, then you can have liquid cooling regardless of your case. And that's pretty useful. Let's get a quick look here. And I wish your dog biscuit and Coke. Yeah, 93 degrees is a little concerning. Remember, it's highly unlikely that a customer would ever push a system that hard for that long, but I want to create a worst case scenario as part of my testing. Remember, this is going to another state where I won't be there to help the person out if they have any problems. So I want to put the computer in a situation that is so preposterous that if it passes that, then whatever the customer throws at it should be just fine, and that's why I do it. And yeah, it doesn't look like I missed anything here in chat. Everything looks good there. And yeah, everything's good. All right, so let's go ahead and get the cooler pulled off of here. I've got the 212 EVO out of the box, and I've laid out the components here on the table while I was away, while the test was running. I've got the little skirt already on the standoffs. And I should be getting pretty good at putting these 212 EVOs on, right? I've been doing that enough times. Let's go ahead and get this unplugged. I'm gonna lay this down. I know you guys aren't gonna be able to see it too well when I do that, but I wanna just try and do this quickly. And I'm gonna go ahead and take the graphics card out because it's sort of in the way of me working on it. And it just takes a minute to pop that graphics card out. And it's an expensive graphics card, and I wanna make sure not to scratch it or anything. Oh, got a runner. can't see the release mechanism. Let's go in there with a flashlight and take a look. Where's my release? Oh, it's all the way back here. All right. Helps to have little hands, I'll tell you that. Can I get at it from the bottom? Sort of. Maybe I can poke at it with a screwdriver. Yeah, this ought to work. It just needs to be pressed down. Yeah, I can't get the leverage I need with that. I think I can get it with the thumb. Yeah, there it goes. All right, that's good. Pull that out. Just set that right over here. Thank you very much. Don't think I need this flashlight anymore. And let's see. So to take out the LiquidMaker 92, you see it rotates. You can put it in either position. It cools the same, one way or the other. These are going to be the easiest ones to remove. Wants a straight edge screwdriver for that. I forgot. The Cooler Master did that. These two are super easy to get to. I wish all four of them were this easy to get to. There's one. There's two. I'm going to keep these off to the side. I want to keep all these together so I can reuse this LiquidMaker 92. I don't think we'll be putting it back on here. I'm not impressed with the 93-degree result. Now that said, it would also be very nice to put this even on a Core i5, for example, or even a Ryzen processor, and we'd probably see improvements. It's not going to be... Liquid coolers, depending on the cooler design, are going to work with varying efficiency based on which CPU you're pairing it with. So don't establish a cooler as being bad simply because it's not a good fit for the specific CPU you have. I just want to be clear on that. This is just not the right cooler for this job, I think. I think the 212 EVO is better suited to this job. And not just for cooling, but I think also for noise and for the customer's desire to have a maintenance-free computer for many, many years. Liquid coolers are never maintenance-free, never. You will eventually have to do something with it. Okay. Yeah, these two top screws are very difficult to get at, and they do advise that you can take the fan off, but that requires 4 more screws to come off to give you better access. But for as much time as that would take, I'd rather do it the hard way. Oop, here we go, it's starting to come off now. And we got one more. Now for this, I'm going to lay the case down because I don't want the cooler to fall. So I'm going to lay this down. Oh boy, that's a tough angle to get at. Getting there. All right, here's our cooler. Need to disconnect it from the header on the board, and then we have a separate SATA power connector that's got to be disconnected. And the whole thing should come out. Just that easy. And I'm going to wipe this thermal compound down because it's messy and it gets all over everything, and I'm not going to reuse that same thermal compound anyway, so not like I'm going to save it. And it's nice when it's warm because it just wipes right off of there. See that? Just like new, ready to go to the next guy. I'll just set that over there for now. I'm just going to wipe the thermal compound off the surface of the CPU as well. We'll put a fresh layer of thermal compound on there. We don't want to mix two different brands of thermal compound. We don't know if they're chemically compatible, and you could be causing a lot more harm. So always make sure, if you're going to use your own thermal compound, you thoroughly clean any pre-existing thermal compound from both the heatsink and the CPU. And only apply the thermal compound to the CPU. Never apply the thermal compound to the heatsink. If the heatsink already has thermal compound applied, that is the precise amount required for that application, and you would not then add it to the CPU. Again, you don't know what brand or chemical material is made up of that thermal compound. It may not chemically be compatible, and that can cause a severe temperature decrease in efficiency of the cooler. So just be careful of that. If your cooler comes with thermal compound, all you do is install it. Trying to outsmart the engineers will often result in really, really bad results. And it's kind of insulting if you're an engineer and you went to school and got a 4-year degree and had to write, you know, depending on your degree, you may have had to write a thesis. And then some kid on the internet says, I can do better than that guy would do this. The kid's got no formal education, and he's falsely providing information to people. And unfortunately, those people aren't smart enough to know better, and they listen to the kid. So be aware of that, guys. And of course, if it's your computer, you can do whatever you want. But when you're advising others, you should include your name and your phone number so that when the advice you give backfires, they can call you. And if you're not willing to expose your real name and your real phone number to somebody, then don't offer them the advice. That's my advice. When customers pay me, they get my name and phone number. All right, I'm gonna get some rubbing alcohol and Q-tips here. This is actually denatured alcohol. And I'm gonna clean this surface of the CPU so that we have the optimal efficiency through the thermal compound that's going to be applied here in a moment. I don't know how many times I've done this in my life, but I've been doing this for 27 years. I don't remember using thermal compound on the 486 days. I think we just put the heatsink on. It's been such a long time, I don't remember. I don't think we started using thermal compound until Pentium 4s. Maybe I'm remembering it wrong. You guys remember? I don't remember. I think Pentium 4s. Prior to that, you just put a heatsink on. The heat wasn't that bad. It wasn't that difficult to control. This CPU is an Intel Core i7 8086K. It's the very first CPU, consumer-based CPU from Intel to hit 5 gigahertz. It's a limited edition CPU. I think they're only making, was it 20,000 or 50,000? I can't remember. And when they're sold, they're sold. So a lot of clients that like to feel special, they like that 5 gigahertz number. I'm going to go ahead and put my thermal compound on now. I'm using the thermal compound that came with the cooler, and you place that on the CPU, not on the cooler. And they give you a lot. They're very generous with the thermal compound. Don't use the whole tube unless maybe you're cooling a big chip like a Threadripper, then you probably use the whole tube. You should be able to cover a CPU 3 times with one tube. So you just treat it like a nice thick coating of paint. Cover the entire surface of the CPU. Kind of pull that up so you can see it now that I've applied it. Should not be able to see through it. Don't smear it with your finger. You put something, you can wear some nitrile gloves, or you can squish it down in methods other people use. It really doesn't matter how you apply it. It really doesn't. People talking about air bubbles, they're probably not mentally healthy or lack a severe amount of thermodynamic knowledge to talk about air bubbles. It's not an airtight system, and the behavior characteristics of the thermal compound change when the CPU heats up, and there's a certain amount of pressure that has to be applied to the CPU equally. That is all handled by the engineers who designed the coolers based on a specification designed by the engineers at Intel and AMD. So these idiots you see pushing glass down on a CPU to show air bubbles that they don't turn on and they don't apply the correct amount of pressure are only proving the point of how much they don't understand. And then when you guys learn from that, it's basically like an epidemic of infectious idiocy. So I hope you are more critical thinkers and use logic to determine the information you read and see on the internet as being valid or not. And if it really is passionate to you, I strongly encourage you to go to school and understand why these things are being done. Reddit and YouTube is not school. You aren't being tested. So we have some tape here, and I'm not going to remove that just yet. I want to put the back plate on first. So the back plate is right here. And you'll see it's got 3 holes, 2 on the top, 1 on the bottom. You'll see there's 3 screws, 2 on the top, 1 on the bottom. That's how you know it goes on this way and not this way. This can be used on Intel or AMD. This is not tape. You don't peel this off. You'll see it's here and it's here. This is where it's going to make contact with the back of the motherboard. And without this protective insulator, you will short out and ground out the entire plate against the back of the motherboard, which would more or less fry your whole computer, probably. So if we were doing AMD, we would put it on this way, and since we're doing Intel, it goes on this way. So that's going to go on there, and then I'm going to take one of these little standoffs right here, and we're going to put that. Trying to remember which position. I think it goes in the middle, if memory serves me correct. Yeah, it would be nice if we had a way to have testing day. I'm not doing this right. It's got to go in the other direction. I got to come in from this side. Yeah, it would be nice if we could test and see how much people are actually learning, if the education was academic and real. It had a third party oversee it to ensure that the information offered was correct, and then have testing to ensure that you've absorbed the information. My discussion on cases is a prime example that people simply don't listen. At some point, people hear enough, they decided that they've heard enough, and then they start talking like it's more important for you to hear them when they didn't give you the common courtesy to absorb or allow you to finish what you were trying to convey. It's a very strange cultural phenomenon. And when I was specifying what I needed in a case, I'm certainly open to any suggestions I don't know about that meet those requirements. But when the suggestions come in consistently don't meet the requirements, it's like, well, you're not listening. So if you're not going to listen, why do you expect me to listen to you? It's just weird, man. And it's like, well, the intention is I'm trying to help. But if you're trying to help by getting in my way, you'd be helping if you stayed out of the way, right? You're not helping if you're not listening. And that's just frustrating. So like I said, with YouTube, in Reddit and the internet in general, there's a lot of quote unquote education being offered. But we don't know how much of that you're actually absorbing because we're not testing you. And we don't have a third party or an advisory committee verifying that the information being offered to you is accurate. So there's a lot of trust that what you're seeing is real. And there's a lot of pride and ego involved that has nothing to do with who's right or who's wrong. It's just, how dare you? How dare you? And that's why it's really, there are places on the internet where you can, go to school. There are schools online and you are tested, but YouTube and Reddit, they're not schools. Wikipedia may be a great source for 80% of the information that's on there, but it's not exactly equivalent to an encyclopedia or an Oxford dictionary. So just bear that in mind. Always do your own research and your own testing before you go parroting out something you heard as fact. If you haven't verified it, you have no business repeating it, unless, of course, like I said, you want to include your real name and your real phone number so that you can hear the consequences of what you've said. God, I would love to live in a society where people actually took responsibility. Wouldn't that be something? This last one in here. That's going on nice and easy. Now that I've done this, this is number 4 I've installed in the last 2 weeks. They're going on a lot quicker now. And that's why I say experience trumps anything you're going to see on the internet. You can watch me install, you can watch anybody install these all day. Until you're in there, elbows deep, you're not going to be good at it. You just have to keep repeating over and over again. And through that actual experience, that's where you're going to get good. And that's when your opinion will matter, not because of what you saw or what you read, but what you did. Life is about what you do, not about what somebody else did. At least that's my opinion. That's what I got to say about that. I don't like this screwdriver. Get a different one. Maybe it'd be better saying that's what somebody else's life is about, not what your life is about. Your life is about what you do. Somebody else's life is about what they do. There we go. Much better. Okay. Now, so the reason this tape is here is it's to prevent any contamination, dust, fingerprints, oils from the skin onto this very clean, polished surface of copper. Copper is a great conductor of heat. You know what's a better conductor? Silver. Costs more. You know what's better than silver? Gold. Conducts heat. Great. Very expensive. You know what's better than that? Platinum. Man, if you could get a platinum cooler, I bet you could overclock the heck out of that CPU. So why not drop about $50,000 on your cooler, get an extra 800 megahertz out of your CPU. It's totally worth it, dude. People on the internet. All right, let's push this down. I'm not insulting everybody on the internet, just the ones where that shoe fits. I would like to wrap this cable up before I install. I want this to go on this way. I'm going to go ahead and take the fan off now so I can access the screws. I like the way the Cooler Master uses these clips to hold the fan in position. The problem I had with the Arctic Freezer was it used these thin wire hangers, and I don't think they will survive shipping. I could be wrong. I just don't think they're going to survive shipping when I have to ship. If it was just local, I wouldn't mind it. If I was building it for myself, it'd be fine. But I think that's a much more secure way for the fans to be mounted than what Arctic Freezer uses. I haven't tried a cryo rig cooler yet, so I can't say how that compares. And then this is going to go in here. Try to remember how I did this. There we go. It's not seating. Is that seated? Let me check the documentation. The cooler can go on a 45-degree angle. I think, as memory serves right. When you look at this, you can see it could clamp down this way, or it could clamp down this way. And you see in this direction how these bend outward, and when we turn it this way, they're inward. See what I'm talking about right in here? And I think they're inward. I think that's how I remember it. Also, these screws need to be moved into a middle position, so I just pull up on the spring, pull up on the whole screw, and then move it into the middle. And this is done to accommodate different different CPU sockets from both Intel and AMD to be as universal as possible, which does sort of make the installation a little more complicated. It'd be nice if you could just take it out of the box and it was already preset, but then they'd have to have 15 different versions of the cooler, and it would be confusing when you were buying it which was the right one. So that's sort of the solution, is to say here's one cooler to rule them all. So the picture they show here, yeah, you see how they, right here, these are the heat pipes, and they're showing the legs bend inward towards the pipes. And if you put it on with the legs moving away from the pipes, that's the wrong direction. And it shows for a socket 11.5X, we want to be in the middle position, and for socket 2011 we'd be in the top position, and then the other side is all AMD. So I had it right. My memory's not so bad, I think. So let's see, these are going to be, this has got to go in, I didn't think about it, got to go in this way, so I've got to move this like this, put it in this way so that when I close it now, those will be facing inward. There's a little nub here, and there's a hole in the base, and that's got to fit in, and it'll seat right in there. Try to avoid touching the bottom of this. If you do get it all touched, and just wipe it down with a Q-tip and some rubbing alcohol. You don't have to. I mean, it's going to work just fine. It'll just work more efficiently. It'll cool a modicum better if you keep it free of contaminants. So if you want it to operate to its full potential, you want to keep that surface as clean as you can by avoiding contact with it. Okay, I think we're good here. When I put the fan on, I want to push air through the radiator. I want all the air moving out towards the back of the case. Same with the rear case fan, it's pushing air. All the airflow moves in the same direction, front to back. It all moves, all in one direction. Whether the fan is at the bottom or the top, it's all moving the same direction. So I'm going to set this on top of the CPU. It can slide around on there, don't worry about it. It's going to move the thermal compound around, that's fine, there's nothing wrong with that. So let me just start one of these screws here. This fan cable's in my way. I'm going to get that out of here for right now. We'll hook that back up when I'm done. Don't be afraid to remove any hardware that could potentially be in your way. It only takes a minute to take the stuff off and put it back on. Really not a big deal. Okay, so there's one screw started. Let me just make sure I'm still lined up. And I want to make sure that this bracket is sitting flush inside of the cooler, because it's critical for it to secure the cooler properly and apply the right amount of pressure. Remember, that pressure applied is specified by the engineers of the chip. Through rigorous research and development, the optimal amount of pressure is determined, and then any third-party cooler has to meet those requirements. For the safety of the motherboard, you don't want to crush the motherboard. There are limits to how many pounds of pressure you can place down on it. And they don't guess at it. It's not like you guys overclocking. They're not just playing around with numbers to see what works. There's actual math and testing involved over many, many hours. It's very rigorous, and it requires a special education in that field. Having worked at Intel, I have great respect for those engineers who design these chips, and it's a little upsetting when I see people on the internet second guessing the engineers because they don't really fully grasp building something for the public. When you're building something for yourself, you don't need to put a safety on a gun. I don't need a safety, but if you're going to sell them to the general public, yeah, you have to put it on there. There's certain things you have to do, like creating an operating system. You wouldn't put an operating system like Linux out and expect the average non-techie type person to really understand it without a significant investment of time and education, or to have somebody do it for them. So when you write for the general public or you create for the general public, it's completely different. It takes a different mindset than doing something for yourself. And there's really no other way for me to really explain this other than to tell you to try it sometime. You'll see. Magni Johansson's contributed 22 Norwegian krona. Love this, by the way. Mike is making a noise on your shirt. Well, sorry about that. Thank you for your contribution, Magni. I appreciate that. There's a Magna. Does he have any of the LiquidMakers for sale? I have about 8 of the LiquidMakers available for sale, but I'm afraid it might be cheaper for you to buy it at Amazon because the price has dropped. I would sell them for $50 plus shipping. I think shipping is probably going to be about $17. Could be a little less than that. I won't know until I box it up, but if you can buy it at Amazon for $64.99 and free shipping, it's cheaper to buy from Amazon than to buy it from me. But I've got extras. If you want to buy them, I'll sell them. All right, let's go back and make sure these are all tight. Always tighten your heatsink in opposite corners. It's the only thing on the computer that the order of the screws being tightened matters. Once again, it goes back to how much pressure is being applied to the surface of the CPU, and that pressure is distributed evenly, not only for structural integrity, but more importantly, for the optimal cooling. Now, the CPU heatsink will still wiggle a little bit, and the Hyper 212, it does have a little wiggle to it. See that? That's normal. Nothing wrong with that. It's allowed to wiggle. Where's my mouse? My mouse. Here's my mouse. Okay. Okay, now I'm going to plug my fan back in right here. Now I have not hooked up the front fan on this case yet. I will before I deliver it to the customer, but to keep our testing fair, I'm going to leave it disconnected so the entire testing environment is not changed. Now before I put this fan on, and remember the fan is going to go on, we're going to blow air out this way. I want to take a minute right now to grab a nylon zip tie and tie this up. So let me grab a nylon zip tie. Oh, actually, I can put my tape back while I'm back here. I keep trying to think of different analogies about the dangers of people acting on information on the internet. Or worse, they don't act on it, they just spread it. I think food is probably the best way to go. You simply don't know what something tastes like until you taste it. There's no alternative, there's no option. You can be in all the virtual reality you want. Virtual reality is numb. There's no feelings in virtual reality. And that's sort of what painkillers do. Painkillers kill your ability to feel. And the internet doesn't allow you to really convey something, how something feels. And why I recommend people build computers, actually do it, is the feeling you get when you turn it on and it works, or the feeling you get when you turn it on and it doesn't work. There's no words that can adequately describe the emotion and the chemical release that occurs in the human brain. It's just, to say it's not the same is an understatement. It's not even close. So the only way you know what something can taste like is to try it for yourself. So before you go telling other people how to do things, make sure you've done it yourself. It's one of my issues I have with YouTube. They like to assign channel. They like to say, hey, I'm with YouTube and I've been assigned to your channel. I'm here to help you. And I go, really? How many videos do you have? Oh, I don't have any. So you're going to tell me how to make videos? How old are you? What does that got to do with anything? Well, I'm just kind of curious what qualifies you to tell me how to make videos. What sort of life experience do you have? Are you middle-aged? Well, I work for YouTube. So you passed a drug test and you read a script, but you're going to tell me, the guy who makes the videos, you're going to tell me how to make them. Well, hey man, I'm just offering to help. Okay. Tell you what, you get your own YouTube channel, build it up bigger than mine, and I'll come to you for help. Does that sound like a deal? Until then, just because YouTube employed you, don't think for a second that you know more about making YouTube videos than I do. And if you do, prove it to me. But this is the world we live in. It's very, very insulting. All right, so I just did a little cable management there, and I'm going to plug this in. Let's see, which one is my CPU fan? I think it's that one right there. Usually they're white. A lot of motherboard makers make them white. Don't know why MSI doesn't follow that rule, but yeah, that's where we're going to go. We're going to go right up there. So the way I'm going to do that, so yeah, there's just no way to know what something tastes like on the internet. You're going to have to put it in your mouth, and then you're going to have to decide whether or not that appeals to you. And just because it appeals to you doesn't mean it's going to appeal to anybody else. And I think it's really important that people understand this, because it seems to be a very large epidemic of disassociation of feelings when it comes to the conveying information without conveying the feeling. So I can convey the ingredients in the chicken sandwich, and you can imagine what that might taste like. But you can't tell if the bread is stale or the chicken is overcooked. Well, maybe you can by looking at it. But ultimately, until you taste it, you shouldn't be advising other people that's how to make a chicken sandwich, because that's the way you saw it on the internet. That's just foolhardy, and it's a complete waste of time. It's kind of disrespectful to other people who might assume the reason you're advising them is because you've tried it and you like it. Now, if you've tried it and you like it, and then you want to advise people, I got no problem with that. So just because you saw somebody do it, don't go advising people how to do it. There's too many people in the world like that on the internet. And they hold no accountability and no liability to what they say. So accept personal responsibility. I know that's a strange thing in this day and age. Accept personal responsibility and don't get yourself involved unless you're willing to be held accountable. And that means exposing who you really are and making sure that people have a way to reach you. So when they have a problem, they can call you and you can continue to help them, since that's what you want to do, is help people. Put yourself out there. Hiding behind a fake screen name, offering advice based on nothing you've ever done in a real world, you're not helping. You're hurting. You're hindering. I'm just telling you, because I think a lot of people aren't aware of it. All right, we're just about done here. Let's go ahead and plug this in. I was talking with Brytech, and he hates it when someone says, here's a build you can do for $700, and then they just go through PC Part Picker and then they pick the parts, but they don't actually build anything. It's just a complete waste of time. It's all theoretical, and it really frustrates real computer builders. Yeah, that's one thing. If you ever see Brytech and you want to pull his chain, say, isn't this a great video? And then point to some video where some guy's just picking parts and he doesn't actually build anything. And he'll tell you what a great system that is. All right, I think we're ready to test this out now. Everything should be hooked up, ready to rock and roll. If I did it all correctly, and I do believe I did, I will wire tie all of this later. Let's do our test. Let's see what happens. Let me switch over to the, oh, I got to plug the video in, right? That's what I forgot. I got to plug HDMI in here. HDMI. Now we're plugged in. All right, now let me go to the feed for that input, which is this one right here. Let's turn this on. You guys want to test the boot up time? You can look at your clock, look at the time on your computer. Let's see how it does. Ooh, it's actually a little louder than I thought it would be. Why is it so loud? Well, let's just, I kind of feel like it's running full speed right now. I don't know why. Let me pull up the hardware info. Program. HW monitor is the one I was using before. Where are we at? Temps are good. I'm surprised that fan is... Maybe there's a BIOS setting I'm missing. Not sure. It's not excruciatingly loud, but I recall these running so silently you can't even hear them. So I might have to check the BIOS. But for right now, I'm just going to leave it alone. just out of the box, straight up, we'll run Prime 95, because let's face it, that's what most customers are going to do. They're just going to install it and run it. So we'll go ahead and just click OK on that, and here we go. We're going to let this run now for 20 minutes. The time now is 4:43, so at 5:03 we'll come back and we'll see what our maximum temp is right down this aisle. We were at 93 Celsius. Oh, sorry, that's not the right. Where is it? Right down here. Okay, here's our temps. So I'm going to be looking at this section right here. We hit 93 degrees last time maximum, and we'll see if this does any better. So I'm going to go ahead and let this run, and I'm going to silence the audio here for a little bit while I get some other work done. All right, guys, sorry about the delay. I'm trying to answer some emails and comments and feeding the dogs here, so let's make sure they get their cookies. All right, you got your dinner? You want a cookie? How about you? You want a cookie? Good boy. All right. I'm letting this run a little bit longer just because I can. How are we doing on our temps here? How does this look? Looks like 79 degrees Celsius. That's a significant difference. I can't help but wonder if maybe I didn't have the other cooler mounted as well. It's possible because it's so hard to get to the screws. It may not have had enough pressure on it. Or it's possible it just doesn't pair well with the 8086K. I know I've had really good experience with the Hyper 212 EVO performing exceptionally well. Now I'm going to go ahead and stop the test. So I want you to see how fast those temperatures drop with an air cooler versus with a liquid cooler. So I'm going to hit stop right here. Now watch right here. Watch these numbers drop quick. Right? Am I right? And I'm going to go into the BIOS and find out why this fan is running. It sounds like it's running full speed. I don't know why. I'll do that here in a minute. I do have an issue. I really need to take it up privately. I've had an issue before with the same user. Heavy Sonic Jeffrey is way too heavy-handed as a moderator. That's not what I want in a moderator. If somebody's talking off topic, that is no reason to remove them. You are way too aggressive and you are costing me viewers. You're damaging my channel, Heavy Sonic Jeffrey, and that is not cool, man. So I am removing you as a moderator because I cannot have somebody that heavy-handed. If you look at the history of what other moderators are doing, you're banning or hiding more comments than anybody else. And it's not a competition over how many people you hide. It's the last thing you really want to do. And this really needs to be a conversation we have privately, but you are way out of control. So I cannot trust you with moderator status. You're gonna have to exercise more restraint if you want to be a moderator. And I expect that from all my moderators. All right? You're costing me viewers when you do that. All right, now, I want to take a look at what's going on with this fan. So let's close this out and let's bring up the BIOS and see what we can do with this fan. Let's hit restart and let's go into the delete. You're gonna see the no signal that's coming from the capture card, and we're about to reboot. We're gonna go into the BIOS. Okay, let's see. Somewhere in here, we should have some fan controls. XMP is turned on, Game Boost is turned on, motherboard, oh, I should have gone into hardware monitor. Can I do that? How do I go back? I don't want overclocking settings, system status advanced. How do I go back? What's easy mode? Storage, fan info. Fan speed, 2000 RPM. CPU fan 1, what do we have? What does that gear do? Smart fan mode. It is a PWM fan. It's a 4-pin fan and not a 3-pin fan. We want to look at the CPU fan settings. Step up and step down. It actually says it's running only at 2000 RPMs. Why is it so loud? The system fan is only running at 1000. I would think the CPU fan would also run at about the same speed. It's the same size fan. Why is it running so fast? That's fine. That looks good. I don't see... Like sometimes in some BIOSes you can set if you want the cooling to be more passive or more aggressive. I don't see any option here for that. What if can I lower it? Is it possible to, I'm not sure how this works in this BIOS. Or on the CPU fan, it's a PWM. I don't think 2000 RPM is normal. I've never had this issue before. Let's go full speed. Doesn't make any difference. Smart fan mode. Maybe I got to put a little check in that box. Oh, that made a difference. Okay, well, there you go. Wow, that's much better. Just got to put a check in the box. Now it's perfectly silent. That's fantastic. Now I'm curious. Let's close that out and let's save it. Let's go to saving. Where do I save this BIOS? There's got to be an option in here somewhere to save this BIOS. Maybe I just hit escape. MSI is kind of letting me down here. I don't see any option to get out of this BIOS. So I'll hit escape on the keyboard. Do you want to quit without saving? No, I want to save. I don't see the option to save and exit. It's just nowhere on the screen. Let's go back into advanced mode. Do I hit the X? Is that what I do? Save configuration exit. Yes. Okay, let's reboot. Let's see how long it takes to boot. Here we go, here we go, here we go. It is a fast boot time, fast boot time. And let's do this again. This is the way I was expecting the fan to run. This is much quieter. It's almost perfectly silent. Let's bring up the hardware monitor again, and then let's go ahead and run the Prime 95 tool, and the fan should just ramp up as necessary. It shouldn't be running full speed like that all the time. So let's bring up Prime 95. We'll just click OK. There, it's going to hammer the CPU really hard on all the cores. And we'll keep an eye on the core temperatures here. And while that's happening, I'll hang out in the chat and we'll just have a little talk. So right now it's 5:13. So we'll go ahead and give this, I'll give it 15, 20 minutes. We'll see how it does. But it's staying very quiet now. This is much better on all fronts. I mean, it's quieter, it's cooling better than that LiquidMaker 92, both made by Cooler Master, interestingly enough. I'm kind of suspicious if I didn't quite have that Cooler Master LiquidMaker 92 completely flush, and I think it should perform better than that. Nothing I can do about, it was a little bit louder. It's not loud, but it was louder than this 212 EVO, which is almost silent, as you can tell. And either way, it's just not ideal for this build. Let's see if we can put the camera back on. Oh, Jimmy's found a toy. I guess after dinner time, it's time to play. So I want to talk just momentarily to Heavy Sonic Jeffrey. There's something called humility. When you say you're not being too heavy-handed after I told you you are, that's not cool. If I told you you were being heavy-handed, you say I'm sorry. That's the proper response. You are not ready for moderator status. I think you need to mature a bit. I will be very reluctant to give you back moderator status with your refusal to accept responsibility. nor are you listening to the person who is giving you that status. I'm trying to help you. When you say you weren't being heavy-handed and they deserved it, this is exactly why you don't deserve to be a moderator. Not on my channel. I'm sorry. The damage you're causing to my channel is you're very selfish to do that. And that, again, applies for all of my mods. I expect you to keep it civil in the chat room. I don't expect you to be a part of the problem. And if you are a part of the problem and I tell you, don't you dare stand up and argue with me about it. You change the system fan speed as well. The system, both fans should be automatically adjusted by the motherboard. They should not be manually set. I would have to go back in the BIOS and check, but I would assume when I checked the box for Smart Fan that it applied to all the fans. This is an MSI motherboard, and maybe they don't do things the way I'm assuming, and I shouldn't assume, but I'm very pleased with how quiet. I mean, the system is dead silent right now. And the cooling doesn't really seem to be affected by that. And that's the way it's supposed to work. We're supposed to utilize the technology to do this for us. That's why you're not going to see me buy cases with fan controllers. I think fan controllers are stupid. They had a purpose and a point many years ago, but they don't anymore. It adds unnecessary cabling. It adds a point of failure, and it shouldn't be up to the human being to decide when the fans need to be cranked up. The CPU will get hot for a few milliseconds at a time. By the time you respond to it as a human being, you're already too late. The computer needs to be given the permission and the opportunity to control the fan as it needs it, when it needs it. And it's, again, less cable management, less points of failure, and less for you as a user to be concerned about. When you deliver a computer to a client as a technician, generally speaking, more times than not, the client doesn't want added bells, whistles, and features. They don't want the lights and buttons and knobs. It's very intimidating to them. They don't know how to use them. So you want to remove these for numerous reasons. Cost, cabling, it's another point of failure that at some point may need to be addressed. And they don't know what to do with it when they have it. So let the system automate as much as possible and take care of itself. Let the user use the computer. They didn't buy a computer to play with fans. You can go buy a fan. They sell fans. You can buy a box fan, a ceiling fan, and you have buttons and you can turn them on and turn them off and turn them up and turn them down. That's not what a computer's for. The computer is for utilizing the keyboard and mouse to instruct the computer to do a task, whether that's entertaining you or getting work done. None of those tasks involve playing with the fans. That's something a hobbyist with nothing else better to do wants to do. And if you want to be a computer technician for a career, that's not a career. You're not going to be hired by people to play with their fans. I mean, you might be hired because somebody has a noisy computer and they'd like it resolved. The way you resolve that isn't by throwing a fan controller in it. It's by fixing the computer so that it can automatically accommodate for itself and be, so the person using the computer uses it for the reason they bought it. I guess I'm having a really hard time finding the words to explain this, but it's extraordinarily simple. Keep the hood closed. Drive the car, keep the hood closed. Stop tinkering under the hood, leave it alone. You'll have a very reliable car. Do your regular maintenance, stop playing with it under the hood. Drive it the way it was meant to be driven. Don't try and add more horsepower or improve the cooling, and if you do, do it to your own system. Don't do it to somebody else's, especially not when it's critical to their job. You're taking on an enormous responsibility, and it will have a bad consequence over time. That will not, it'll result in having a business that's simply not sustainable. So you always want to play it safe. You always want to keep things as simple as possible and let the computer do what it can for you. That's the whole point and why we have them. So when you're going in there and you're tweaking every little thing, you're defeating the whole point of why the computer exists. It's supposed to make it so you don't have to do all that stuff. So that's the philosophy I have in my business. Oh, fan's starting to go a little bit higher. Gear says in Norway you can't be an independent computer tech, they just buy a new one. Okay, but if they buy a new computer, who sets up their printer? Who sets up their email? Who moves their files from one computer to the next? Who does all that? It's not like you could just go buy another computer, plug it. Maybe if you buy a Chromebook, but a regular computer, you're not solving anything when you just buy a new one. You're creating a whole different series of problems resulting from the fact that it's different from the one you had. And that's usually where people get paid, is in the configuration of the new hardware, the migration of the data. Programs have to be reinstalled, reconfigured, printers, etc. In fact, I make the same amount of money on a repair as I do when somebody buys a new computer and they call me to have it all reconfigured for them. So it makes no difference to me one way or the other. Carrie, did I get much rain in my neighborhood? Not today. It just drizzled a little bit. It's nice to see some rain. Oh, the fan's just quieted back down. Across the street from me is a big stadium, and the traffic is getting really bad because Jay-Z and Beyonce will be performing across the street from my house at 7:30, which is 2 hours from now. And I need to go have dinner soon, and I don't want to go in that direction. Maybe I just need to stay home tonight. Carrie mainly builds for the business community. No, that's not true at all. That is absolutely not true. The business community is a regular source of income. If you want to be a self-employed computer technician, you need a regular source of income. And it's by offering MSP or managed service provider, by offering that to your clients, your business clients primarily, you have a regular source of income. And business clients, they need maintenance and they need backups. They need regular ongoing things that, if they leave it to an employee to do, it just won't get done. So that's what I do. But I also do residential clients. And I wouldn't say that I primarily work with businesses. I don't think that's a true statement at all. But I would say the primary source of my income from a single source is from businesses. Where you have one business client, you will, if you wanted to go residential, one business client is worth approximately, let me think about this now. I'd say one business client is worth about 200 consumer clients, residential clients. And the reason I say that is the consumer clients are not regular. They don't have, generally they don't have monthly maintenance. They're not proactive, they're reactive. So the consumer waits until a situation is so bad, rather than calling you when the situation was a minor inconvenience, they waited until it became catastrophic. They want to pay you as little as possible. They want it done as quick as possible. And they've given you a big convoluted mess, which is a huge pain in the butt to untangle. And then you won't hear from them again for potentially a year to 2 years. So that's one client every year and a half to 2 years. So to make up the number of hours you would need to pay your electric bill and your rent and everything else, you need more billable hours in a month. And if you only get an average of 1 hour from a consumer every year and a half or 2 years, and that hour is hard work, you'd be better focused doing with businesses where you can be more proactive instead of reactive. You have more control, more stability, and the client certainly appreciates it. You can offer that as a contractor cheaper than what they would pay in-house. And many times these businesses, especially small and medium-sized businesses, don't have enough work to justify a full-time salaried employee or even a full-time hourly employee. So I try and cover both equally, but without business work, I would be out of business. Consumers are far too unpredictable. At one point when I started, I had over 450 customers that were residential, and I was barely making ends meet, and I was working so hard. By switching over and trying to get more business, I'm now able to control the amount of work by being proactive and doing maintenance and things that prevent catastrophic failures and prevent emergencies and keep the bill equal so the business doesn't get surprised with a huge bill. The business has a monthly retainer. They know exactly how much money their IT labor is going to cost on a managed service provider level. And that's very important to a business where you can say, look, I'm going to tell you right now, this is what I'm going to charge you per month. And you multiply that times 12 and that's your labor for the year. Now, when it comes to parts and things like that, that's different. But generally speaking, parts don't get changed that often. And as long as the business takes my advice and they buy quality parts that I recommend, it's a sound investment on their part to be able to take the advice I offer. It benefits them because they spend less over a longer period of time, and it benefits me because I'm able to profit more because I don't have to work as hard with cheaper hardware or the wrong hardware for that specific job that needs constant babying. So it really works out for everybody that way. But business is definitely, if you're serious about wanting to get into IT, you really need to focus on business because consumers more and more are moving to tablets and they're leaving their switching over to their smartphones to do the very simple, basic things consumers want to do. My father had called me the other day and he was upset that he was trying to go to Ava's car rentals. And he's a travel agent and he was trying to help somebody book something and the site said he wasn't authorized. And he called Ava's and they're not going to help him. And I tried to explain to my father, they cannot fix your computer because if they fix your computer, first of all, they're not paid for that. You're not paying them for that. He says, yeah, but I'm trying to give them my business and their website won't load. I can't give them my business. I go, well, you're not a big corporation selling millions of dollars in rental cars, so they don't care about your business. And if they were to fix your computer, first of all, the person you talk to on the phone is at the lowest part of the totem pole on technical knowledge. They'll hire people with no technical knowledge or experience to read a script. It's a low-paying job. The people that actually know what they're doing, they don't get on the phone and talk to customers. This is how business works. If they were smart enough to know how to fix your computer, then whatever happened to your computer next, you're going to blame them for it. Hey, after you fix my computer, my sound stopped working. I demand you fix that. You caused this problem. They're not going down that rabbit hole with you. So my dad just kept going on and on. I go, just stop. I go, customers do this to me all the time. Please don't do this to me. You want to talk to me for an hour about a problem you're incapable of solving that I need to see and I could probably fix in seconds. Just stop. I mean, we talked about this for an hour. I swear to God. He's like, well, I used to work in computers. I go, Dad, when you worked in computers, there wasn't an internet. You're connected to the biggest network that's ever existed in the history of mankind. There's over 100,000 new viruses released each and every day. It's not simple. You've got security. You never had to worry about security in the 70s or even in the 80s on these big mainframes you worked in enclosed lands. This is a WLAN. This is a wide area network. This is huge. And you know, your firewall could be blocking you, your antivirus could be blocking you, your browser could have a security setting that's been wrongly adjusted, your computer may have a corrupt file. You're oversimplifying this. Let me just look at it, for crying out loud, and stop talking about it. So I logged into his computer. I said, show me the problem. He went to the website. Sure enough, authorizations not allowed. I went to settings. He's using Internet Explorer or Edge. I said, clear the cache. And then it worked. It literally took 1/100th of the amount of time to fix it than it did to talk about it. And that is a frustrating part about being a technician, is when a customer oversimplifies what you do for a living as though, well, I can do it too. Well, then do it. I've got other things to do than have a discussion about theoreticals with you. Let's show me the problem, let me fix it, or you fix it. But let's not sit here and talk about it for an hour. And it's a very challenging part of being a technician, because everybody just seems to think that they can fix everything, and they just need you to tell them that one little thing they're missing. You can't jam 27 years of experience into a 1-hour phone conversation and then have that person be on your level. There are some problems where it's just a matter of saying, click here and do this. Yes, there are some problems like that, but not every problem is like that. And it's difficult to express to customers, let me do my job, and don't insult me by suggesting that my job is so simple that I can just explain it to you over the phone. And if it is that simple, then why are you talking to me? Why don't you just fix it yourself and we'll both be happier? They go, well, you're rude. I'm like, well, look what you just did to me. What did I do? All I did is answer the phone. I deserve the punishment because I answered the phone. So, yeah, it's sort of the downside of IT, is the human interaction sometimes is a little difficult. Working with the computers is a lot easier than dealing with some of the people. And you can hear that fan's kind of ramping up and slowing down. It's kind of going back and forth a little bit, and that's exactly what it's supposed to do. How are we doing on our temps? Seen a little bit higher temps. We've hit an 83 Celsius now, which is still better than the LiquidMaker 92 did. And we're currently running at around 60 degrees Celsius with a max at 83. So our max went up about 4 degrees maybe by letting the fan react. That's perfectly acceptable and preferred because it's really quieting it down. And again, no customer is ever going to run the system 100% on all the cores for this length of time. It may happen in little tiny millisecond bursts, but it won't be straight on like that. So again, we're trying to paint a worst case scenario and make sure the computer can deal with it, so that when we deliver the computer to the customer, that we can rest assured that no matter what the customer requires of it, it should handle it just fine, because nothing will be that difficult. Nothing's going to push that computer that hard that the consumer's going to do. The way I try to explain my business to people is I try to be the McDonald's of computer repair. And by that I mean I want to help as many people as quickly as possible for the cheapest price. That means I don't have time to sit here and talk with you and chit chat. It means when you're in line at McDonald's or any fast food restaurant, and somebody's up there and they're not ready to order, they've been waiting in a line, and the whole time they've been in the line, it never occurred to them when it's their turn that they should be ready. So now, keeping in mind we've got, let's say there's 10 people in line behind this person. This person walks up to the register and says, is your Big Mac GMO free? How do you prepare that? Can I get it on a, do you have any gluten-free options? and they're looking at the menu. The whole time they were in line, they could have done all this, right? But now they've waited, and all these people are behind them, and everybody's hungry, and everybody wants to eat, and everybody wants to get on with their life. And this person is selfishly being inconsiderate and asking questions of an employee who has no idea the answer to these questions. Hey, look, I'm a cashier. I didn't make the menu. I don't know where we source the food. I don't know if it's GMO, gluten-free. I don't know. It's on the menu. What do you want? We're not here to have a discussion. Tell me what you want. I punch it into the computer. The food comes out. Who's next? That's the way I run my business. A lot of customers think I'm a psychologist and I'm there to listen to them and answer their 8 million questions about computers. And the problem with that is they're asking the questions in an order that doesn't make any sense, and they're unable to retain the information I'm providing to them. They need a proper educational course which teaches based on a sound foundation before progressing forward. So they'll ask a basic question, an advanced question, back to a basic question, back to an intermediate question, back to, and it's like, hold on. You're just wasting both of our times. And this is not what I do. I fix computers. If you need an education in computers, if you need a tutor, I suggest you hire a tutor. Show me what the problem is. Get out of my way, let me fix it, let me have you test it. Let me get in and out of here as quickly as possible. Not only so it can save you money and get you back up and running faster, but so I can help the next guy that's waiting. Some people say, well, you're rude. Well, I guess I'm rude because I'm thinking of the other people that are waiting behind you and you're not. So to me, you're the one being rude. I had a customer do that to me once. We were just kind of chit-chatting, waiting for a computer to, I don't know, finish a virus scan or do a Windows update. And the update had finished and we had continued talking and I hadn't noticed. And then maybe something else happened and, after I addressed it, we started talking again and it finished and again I ignored it. Well, I didn't want to be rude and interrupt the conversation. And I was working for somebody else at the time and they wanted every minute billed. So when the bill came, when it was time to draw up the bill, I was there for 4 hours. And I thought, I don't feel right charging this person for, my boss wants me to charge 4 hours. But I know we spent about 2 hours talking, so I'm going to cut this down to 2 hours. Well, at 2 hours, it was probably a $300 bill. So I handed the lady the invoice, and she's like, $300? I go, well, yeah, I've been here for 4 hours. She goes, well, can't you cut out the chit chat? I said, I did. You can't talk to a doctor, an attorney, a psychologist without being billed by the minute or by the hour. Some charge you every 15-minute increments, especially psychologists and attorneys. What makes you think my time is worth nothing except when I'm working on the computer? Why is that okay? And why is it okay if I was a lawyer or if I was a doctor, you would totally accept that? Why is there a double standard? Why is my time valued less? So if you want the cheapest price possible, don't interfere with the tech. Convey the information necessary. If you have a ton of questions, pay the tech to tutor you. Or if you want to save money, go to your local community college and take some courses, or go to your library and get some books. There's certainly plenty of YouTube videos and content on the internet available as well. But the problem with that is you don't know what's being conveyed as being authentic and true. And published books, like through McGraw-Hill and other, Pearson and other educational book publishers, you know what you're reading is accurate. And it's accountable. You know who the author is. When you deal with the internet, a lot of people they cite privacy concerns, but what they're really doing is being cowards. And they will stand up to tell you what they think. They're not brave enough to put their name behind it. And if you're not brave enough to put your name behind it, I have no interest in what you have to say. Can you imagine? Could you just picture this for a minute? Can you imagine you go to college and the college course is very expensive. and you've reserved time out of your schedule to be in the classroom, and the teacher shows up with a mask on, and he says, "My name is John Doe, and I'm here to teach you today." Would you stay in that class? I wouldn't. All right, I think I'm going to go ahead and stop this. I think this is done really well. I think this says a lot about the Hyper 212 EVO. Very quiet. The install really isn't. Anytime you install any third-party cooler, they're all going to be difficult to install. Once again, watch what happens. Let's see if I can do this without losing the window. Let's see if I can just kind of keep this alive over here. So you can move that over here. And let's move this. Let's just, maybe I can just do this with it. Let's take and shrink it up a little bit. So you can watch these temperatures over here. Let's close this window so it doesn't get in the way. I want you to watch. Right now we're at 73. Watch what happens as soon as I hit stop. I want you to witness how fast this is going to cool. Here we go. Boom, almost instantaneously. You see how fast that happened. That will not happen that fast with a liquid cooler. This is a benefit of an air cooler. People that promote liquid coolers, they don't tell you the downside about it. It takes a computer longer to cool down. Now, is that a big deal? I don't know. Is it a big deal for you to keep your computer cool? I mean, pick a side. That's all I'm saying. Make up your mind. All right. I think that's going to wrap up today's stream. I think all I have to do left here is do some cable management, throw the side panels back on, and I can get this shipped out to Bill in Oregon. Bill, I really appreciate your business. I appreciate your patience. I know I told you I was going to do this on Monday, but I had the opportunity to do it today, and I thought, nobody's ever complained they got their computer sooner than expected. So I'll do the cable management tonight. We'll get this all cleaned up nice and pretty for you, and then throw the panels on it, and it's ready for you, my friend. And that's going to wrap up today's stream. Let me make sure, because I've been sort of fixated on the camera, I've missed the conversations here in the chat. Did I miss any contributions? I always want to give a shout out. Michael contributed $2 New Zealand dollars. Thank you, Michael. I think that's the only contribution I missed. It looks like he did that about 15 minutes ago. Appreciate the contribution. Thanks to everybody watching and for tuning in. And I just want to look through the comments real quick. Michael says, I sent a donation. Thanks for your videos. Thank you, Michael. That's moderator status for Michael. Pork eating infidel says, thank you for having us today, Carrie. Well, thanks for being had. Thomas Carter says, nice one, Carrie. Great stream as usual. Thank you, Thomas. Christopher Raybone says, thanks, Carrie. Christopher, let's make sure you're a moderator. I recognize you. Bagnay Johansson says, wow, great demo. Thank you. Patrick Manny says, thank you for another great stream. Thank you, Patrick. A lot of hot air on the show. Well, if I'm involved, you know there's going to be. Hyper 212 is impressive. Noctua coolers are also great, but you could buy 3 Hyper 212s for the price of 1 Noctua. I'm not comfortable with some of those Noctua coolers being so heavy, hanging on the side of the motherboard for year after year after year. It doesn't make me feel comfortable. CCTV user says, I spend more time in Carrie's kitchen than in my own. Bill's Sony TT3 says, good night, Carrie. Enjoy the concert if you go. Oh, I'm not going to see that concert. No. Carrie in crowds. No. No. Roger says, thanks. Thank you, Roger. Louise Mahaya says, I have to say, after many years of seeing your kitchen, I still get excited when I see it in my YouTube feed. Try a video in the Mustang. I'd like to do a video while I'm driving, but I need basically I need a GoPro with a windshield mount. It's a lot of money. Am I going to go live tomorrow? I'm supposed to be filming Thursday and Friday with Mitch so we can finally get this interactive build done. I have to really trim down the interactive build. I've overestimated the concept. Viewers are not getting it. So I'm going to simplify it and reduce it down so that the viewer doesn't have as many choices to make. And we're going to just push it through as a simple build. There won't be any more choice of Intel or AMD. I'm not doing that anymore. It's going to be AMD only on this. And we're not going to choose motherboard or case first. The case is going to come first, and then the motherboard will be next, and the user can just choose which components they want to install, in what order. And then I have a final decision as to whether or not we just push through the cable management or the cabling, or if I allow the user to pick. I think I need to just take away these user options because they're not getting it. When the main video has like 5,000 views and then the first video you have to click on, you have no choice but to click on it, only has 800 views, that's a huge abandonment rate. So I have to rethink the concept and really simplify it and take it down by I have to remove about 60% of what we did and then stitch the rest of it together so it flows as one simple video, giving the user just a little bit of interactiveness. And we'll see how that works, but that's going to be it. I've got a time constraint myself. Mitch is leaving to go out of the country. So we have to get it done soon. Now, whether or not it'll be tomorrow, I think it will, but if we're going to have rain and dark clouds, it's not ideal for filming. But I have to make up my mind very soon because I don't want to have Mitch making plans to be with me and have me cancel last minute. That's very inconsiderate. And every day I don't film with Mitch is one day closer to when Mitch has to leave the country. Well, he doesn't have to leave the country. What'd you do, Mitch? But then if we have any mistakes or if things go awry, there's less opportunity potentially to have him have time to come back and correct it. No pressure. So at this point right now, there's no plans for me to go live Thursday or Friday, but it can change in a heartbeat. We'll see what happens. Adam R has contributed, looks like 10 Australian dollars. Thank you, Adam. I appreciate that. He says, giving back for the content you provide, and you are an moderator, Adam. Thank you so much. CCTV user says, I got the video perfectly. I didn't say nobody got it. If you just look at the view numbers, look at how many people viewed the first video, and then click, it says click here to start, and look at the number of views of people that clicked the first link, which is the only link, by the way, on that beta test. And that was part of the reason I was beta testing, to see what the abandonment was. It's like 80% abandonment. So again, just like when I complain about the engineers doing things the way the engineers want, just because I want the interactive video this way doesn't mean it's going to work. So I've got to take the information I have, which is why I released it as a beta, so I can evaluate that, and then I need to adapt it to accommodate what the viewers are doing. It's the only way you're ever going to grow and learn, is to say, okay, well, this is the way I would do it, but that's not the way everybody else is doing it. So if the vast majority of people are abandoning that, I have to reevaluate my approach so I don't have as much abandonment. You can have the greatest content in the world, but if they're not clicking on it, they're not watching it, what's the point? It's the same as not having it. Jesse Reyes says, thank you for your great videos. I really enjoy them. Thanks, Jesse. I need a steak dinner tonight. I need a steak dinner every night. Carrie, did your wife like the Dilbert cookie jar? My wife has asked me to ask you guys to stop sending me stuff because we don't have any place to put it. Little stuff is fine. She's like, where are you going to put that? I said, I don't know. I don't know. It's nice. She goes, well, I don't want it. There's no room for it here. So I have to, she goes, tell your viewers to stop sending you stuff. You're too nice of a guy. It's so thoughtful, you know, the effort he went through to send it. But honestly, I don't have any place to put it. I can't even, I'm looking in every room in my house. I have absolutely no place to put it. So I've put it back here. You'll see it's back there for right now, but it won't stay there. So I wasn't even going to talk about it, but that's what happened. Yeah, she was not happy. I need a pod in the backyard. No. If you have so much stuff, you've got to put it in storage, get rid of the stuff. Carrie needs a man cave. My wife would argue that the whole house is a man cave. Depends who you ask. Carrie, did you ever like fixing old computers as a hobby and get them working again? No, it's a complete waste of time. Old computers are far too slow and have absolutely no value. I would rather just sit down and watch TV than waste my time doing that. But if you're somebody who wants to learn, it's great to grab a computer that's broken because you can't break it. Take it apart, see if you can fix it. That's great experience. I don't need that experience. I really don't. And I have enough customers waiting for me currently, and it's been that way for a long time. I don't have, it would be very selfish for me to work on such a mindless project for no purpose other than for the challenge when I have people with serious problems, you know, serious computer issues, patiently waiting for me to address them. So, yeah. Patrick says sorry. Send contributions instead. I have to admit, Patrick, I was blown away. The second time you've done that, I was blown away by it. It really means the world to me. Zen Carter says, thanks for another successful, informative, and well-organized stream. Well, I don't know how organized it was, but it was honest. Does Mrs. Holzman have to remove PC parts from the bed before she goes? No, it's not that bad. You need a big basement when you move back to Michigan. That is exactly my plan, because a basement is naturally nice and cool, and I could set up a whole permanent studio down there, and the noise won't carry over, so I can film even into the later hours in the evening. I will always need lighting in a basement, so light will never be a problem because it's always dark in a basement, always. So I can have permanent light fixtures, permanent camera locations, and just literally flip a switch and be ready to film. One day, basement would be perfect. And the commute to work would just be going down the stairs. What more could I want? Did I fix the computer that was blue screening? I couldn't, there didn't seem to be anything to fix. I could not replicate the blue screen, nor could the customer replicate the blue screen while I had it. There were several comments in the chat room about a voltage issue on the i9 processor being in a different state than the default of the BIOS, that only affected Adobe Lightroom. It affected nothing else. And the customer's complaint was the blue screen only happened in Adobe Lightroom. So I don't know what happened with the customer. Just one day he just said, send it back. Didn't make any rhyme or reason to me why. It sort of blindsided me. I wasn't expecting it. I thought we were going to continue to work on it until the blue screen. Maybe he didn't have that information before, and maybe he thinks that's the solution he was looking for. Maybe the BIOS update I put on it before I started working on it fixed it. There's a lot of maybes. This customer did something no other customer's done before. He prepaid for the shipping to go back to him. So what I told him was, the reason I require the $125 payment up front is so I can use that to ship the system back. But since you've prepaid for your shipping, your return shipping, I'm more than happy to refund your money. And he says, that's great. So I just go into PayPal, I hit refund. I boxed his computer back up in the same box he had it in. I used all the same box, same packing material. I printed out his shipping label, and I took it over to the FedEx store, and he should have it. I did that Monday night, so he'll probably get it this Monday, maybe Tuesday. It's going ground to New York, so it's a long way. I think it'll be Monday or Tuesday. He should have it. And then the system I mailed to Louisiana, that should have arrived today. Remember that, the H500 for Martin? Martin should be a happy guy today, assuming the box didn't arrive all damaged. FedEx has been really good with that, by the way. The boxes have been arriving looking like no one's even touched them. So fingers crossed that Martin in Louisiana got his system today and that it arrived without any problems. I ordered the parts for the build that's going to go to Australia. This is going to be a high-end system using the Nuka-Cola case, and I expect to have those parts early next week. I was very surprised. Amazon's pricing on some of the stuff was a bit higher than expected. I think they wanted $425 for the 8086K. I got the same CPU at Amazon for $399, but then they add $30 on sales tax. What are you going to do? Newegg was out of stock. And then when I ordered the 1080 Ti at Newegg for $715, I kicked myself in the butt when I found out I could have bought the exact same graphics card, the NVIDIA EVGA 1080 Ti Black Edition. NVIDIA is selling on eBay. Brand new, never been used. Same exact card that Newegg wants $714.95 for. I can buy direct from the manufacturer on eBay for $35 less and free shipping. So I kind of screwed up there. But I mean, the customer's paying for it, but I could have saved my customer $35 if I slowed down. There's an advantage to getting all your parts from one vendor, especially if you have any problems you need to have any customer service. And I could always return the card back to Newegg, but there'll probably be a restocking fee because there's nothing wrong with it. So why should Newegg have to put all this extra work in putting something back in inventory and checking it, making sure it's all there when they didn't do anything wrong? I'm the one who screwed up. So I just need to watch that a little bit more and be aware that I had no idea that EVGA sold on eBay. Now I know. So be exciting to build that system in that Nuka-Cola case. There's another Nuka-Cola case I'm building that's a local gentleman who's buying all of it. He's already got most of his parts. And we talked over the phone, and I have no problem with the parts that he has. And he's fully capable of doing it himself. But he thinks it would be great content for a video, and he's willing to let me build it for the channel so you guys can enjoy the build. And his initial idea is to stick with the NZXT motherboard that has a custom-made cover that goes with that case. The problem with that is it's not the best motherboard. It's certainly not the best motherboard for the money. There's nothing wrong with it. It's just you can buy a motherboard from another manufacturer that has more bells, whistles, and features for less money. But the custom motherboard cover that matches the case only fits the NZXT. So if we're going for the aesthetic, the problem is the cover hasn't been available for has it been a month? So he's got the motherboard, but he doesn't have the cover. And if he hits a certain point in time, he's not going to wait anymore, and he's going to send the motherboard back, and he's just going to go with like an Asus or a Gigabyte high-end board. We'll see how that plays out. Carry NZXT sells on eBay too. Well, that's good to know. Newegg has a clearance area on eBay, but generally it's older products, nothing. It's not like they're competing against themselves. I guess product that doesn't move on the site, they take it off and put it on eBay. Did I find a replacement for the $200? No, but I'm getting buried in emails from people who aren't listening to me, and it's really starting to upset me. I've specified what I need out of a case, hoping that somebody knows of a case, and people are just sending me, it's almost like they're just, what, you need a computer case? And that's the only part they heard. And it's starting to really upset me because you're taking time out of my day because you didn't take the time to listen. And then you think I'm being rude and ungrateful when you're the one who's interrupting my day with something completely irrelevant to what I asked for. So what am I going to do? I mean, I'll just keep looking for a good replacement. And I still have two or three $200 cases here. I'm sure they're not out of inventory yet. I probably could pick up a few more, but eventually I'm going to have no choice but to find a replacement for it. So better I do that sooner rather than later. These aren't necessarily trolls. They mean well, you know. They mean well when they send me that. Hey, have you thought of this case? They think they're doing me a favor. They don't realize they're actually hindering me. They're taking my attention away from something else because an email's come in and it demands my attention, and I read it. Then I feel the need to respond because if I don't respond, I'm rude. But then when I respond, they don't like my response because they think my response is rude. But I'm like, why are you sending me this case when I told you I couldn't have this and I couldn't have that and I don't want this and I don't want that, and your case has all the stuff I said I didn't want, or some of the stuff I said I didn't want. If it doesn't have the stuff I don't want, don't recommend it to me. I don't want to hear, well, this is close. No, I don't want what's close. I want it exactly the way I want it, or better than that. It's not hard. Right? It kind of reminds me when I go to buy a car and I say, look, this car is $30,000 and I will not own a black car or a white car in Arizona. And I want this feature and I want this feature and I want this feature. I'm going to be paying on this car for 5 years. This is what I want. If I can't get what I want, I'm not committing to 5 years of payments to live with something I don't want. I'd rather not have it. So the salesman says, this happens all the time. I've got the exact car you want. And he pulls it up. It's got all the bells, whistles, and features that I want, and then some, right? Good. But it's black. What did I say? I said I didn't want a black car or a white car. Why did you bring me a black car? And the salesman, every time, well, the price on it's really good. I didn't say anything about the price. I never said anything about the price. Well, what if I discounted it enough? What would it take for a discount for you to be colorblind? I have to look at that car every day. I have to drive that car every day. For the next 5 years, I will be upside down in payments for at least 3 of those years, where it will be impossible for me to get rid of the car. So it's not negotiable. If you don't have what I'm looking for, let's save each other some time. Say I don't have it. Lex says you're going to have to make some compromises. I might have to make some compromises, but this discussion only started today, and I'm not ready to make any compromises until I have exhausted my search for a replacement. When I've exhausted that search, then I'll consider compromises, and not 1 second before. Lex says, I don't want a car with a start button, but they all have them. See, I'm the opposite. I have always wanted a car with a start button, but I've never been able to get one. We had our BMW and it had one. It's my favorite thing in the world. I love a start button. My Mustang actually runs like a start button. You put the key in and you turn it, and they let go of the key, and the engine will keep cranking until it starts, even though you let go of the key. That's what a start button does. So it seems to me they could have put the start button in the Mustang, but they didn't. I just think that's the coolest thing ever. Carl says, that's how I ended up in a black truck. Exactly. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. That's what the salesman does. They're like, well, this is the color I got. And it's like, well, is the point that I have to live with it, that I have to sacrifice part of my salary every month in exchange for the vehicle? Is it not getting through to you that I should get the color I want? I should get exactly everything I want. If I'm going to pay the whole bill, I had one car salesman say, we were like $20 apart. You're going to let this car go for $20? And I said, are you going to let the car go for $20? Just take everything they say and turn it on them. If you really want to negotiate with a car dealer, all you have to do is repeat what they say, but reverse it to them. So he said, it's like a pizza. You're going to, $20 is a pizza. It's one pizza a month. I go, yeah, one pizza a month for the next 60 months. That's 60 pizzas, not one, 60 pizzas. Just take what they say and flip it around. It's wonderful. Salesmen have no defense for it. This system, I'm telling you guys, this thing is so quiet. Can you even hear it? I'm going to lean in on it. I thought it was off. Gear says I can get you 52 200Rs at a price point of $150 a piece. So for $150 a piece, I can buy 3. So at 52 times 3, I could buy approximately 156 cases for the same price. That's not going to work. Someone mentioned the Corsair 230T. If you watch the Judge build, I worked with a 230T. 230T is just not going to do it for me. All right, guys, I'm going to go ahead and wrap it up. Thank you all for watching. I need to go eat. It's running a bit late. I'm actually running an hour later than I wanted to. So thanks for joining me. Thanks for your participation. As always, I hope you enjoyed the video. Thanks to my moderators for keeping it civil in the chat room. Thanks to everybody who's contributed. And I will see you all again probably Monday, I think. Until then, bye for now.